BronxNet, or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
Welcome to BronxTalk. Election Day brought us 3 new legislative leaders in the Bronx. Last week, you met the 2 new Bronx Assembly members, and tonight we introduce you to the new councilman-elect in the 12th Council District who won the seat over 4 others. He succeeds Larry Seabrook. Now, if you have questions or comments, you can call into the show tonight at 718-960-7241. You can also email them to us at bronxtalk@hotmail.com. And we'll read those on the air during a future edition of our program. Please join me in welcoming the councilman-elect in the 12th Council District, which includes the Northeast Bronx communities of Edenwald, Co-op City, Baychester, Eastchester, and Wakefield. It is Councilman-elect Andy King. Good evening, Mr. King. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me tonight.
And congratulations on the victory.
Thank you.
I know it was hard fought and something you've wanted for a while, and I guess in America, dreams do come true. It's the way it is.
Yes, they do, and I'm grateful and I'm thankful for everyone who came out and voted for me, but I have to always give credit to the Most High, where I keep my faith in, who wakes me up every day and put the spirit of service on my heart to go out and do the things that he needs for me to do.
I want to reiterate something that came up the night we did the debate. Now, you were not here for the debate. Most of our viewers, we assume, know that. So it was really with the opponents and not you, which you did not intend. You were, in fact, in the hospital.
Yes.
I did my due diligence, and we spoke on the phone to make sure that there was no funny business. I know some people allege that well, maybe it's not true. He's here talking with us tonight, and I don't think there was any reason not to attend. So how are you feeling? Are you okay? Do you have any reason to be concerned? Should constituents be concerned? Let's just get that out of the way, and then we'll move on to other issues.
I am doing excellent. I got a clean bill of health, and I am grateful that to find out that when I did go into the hospital, pretty much it was just some inflammation, and inflammation is down, and no more than a pull of a hamstring, if I can equate to what was happening. So I'm good and fired up and ready to go to serve the people.
I could tell viewers, we were talking before the show, and the councilman-elect is already halfway into it, so if not all the way into it, so he's ready to go. Let's get right into it here. Your background as an organizer for 1199, you'd been involved in the Bronx healthcare community over your working career. Health indicators in the Bronx are the worst in the city and in many cases in New York State. How do we make people healthier? Is it a matter of access? Is it a matter of prevention? Is it a matter of nutrition? I suppose it's some of all of that. But as a councilman, where do you focus your energies to help people in your district get healthier?
I think the first thing we need to do is educate ourselves. And when we talk about healthcare and wellness, people have to understand that healthcare doesn't just revolve around having health insurance. It's being able to understand the proper foods that we should eat, the type of exercises that we have, and making sure that mentally that we are clear on how to live in our communities. One of the things that I was advocating for as an organizer for 1199 is making sure that we continue to keep clinics and hospitals open, because one of the things that is so desperately needed in our community is jobs. And in the Bronx, which is 75% of the workforce in the Bronx is in healthcare. The 12th district alone, over 81% of the people who reside in the 12th district work in some form of healthcare. So we need to make sure that we keep health facilities open. We need to make sure we can keep those jobs open. And we need to make sure that people understand the importance of living a clean, healthy, not only just physically, but mental state. That'd be good.
Certainly everybody would be on board, doesn't matter what political party you're in, when we say we want to keep health facilities open. However, budget cuts, there are cuts to all different medical suppliers and all those kinds of things. How do you keep them open? Is it simply a matter of just banging your fist on the table and saying, don't close this one? Or is there another political or legislative strategy that has to come aboard?
Well, one of the things when it comes to funding for health care, that's a state issue in which I've always had to get on the bus and lobby and, you know, talk with our elected officials in Albany to make sure that they're able to, when it comes to budget time, negotiate to make sure that health care is a priority. As a city council representative, I will continue with that same passion to partner up with the state legislators to make sure that the Bronx is at the front end of making sure when it comes to getting funding for health care, that the Bronx is at the front end of all funding received.
Mm-hmm. I know Councilmember Seabrook has been somewhat inactive, preoccupied, and we certainly know what his issues were. I guess for the people in that part of the district, it will be somewhat of a relief to have somebody who's active and involved in these issues, something I guess you expect to be. Let's talk about the other aspect of it. How do you educate people? I mean, it's out there, we're talking about it now, but how do you get it so that we get to a point when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to food choices, when it comes to other lifestyles and behaviors, people actually change behavior so they live healthier lives?
Right. One of the things I've done, my history in the Northeast Bronx has been an educator of youth. And one of the things I really believe, if you educate young people can take that information back home. You know, you hear this statement, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Sometimes our parents are so caught up in the rut of making sure that we keep the lights on, we're working 2 jobs, you know, we spend a whole lot of time that sometimes we don't take time to educate ourselves on some of the new things. But if we're able to train and educate our young kids on the importance of wellness and the different foods, what tends to go when they go home, when parents go shopping, when the kids say, well, this isn't good for us, this isn't good for me, I learned this now. Parents tend to change their shopping habits. So what we want to do as parents start changing their shopping habits, that we partner up with with stores and making sure that they're providing the foods that are necessary at an economic price. Because some of the things that I have noticed, you can go to a Stop and Shop in Mount Vernon and then go to the same one that's in Co-op City, and you can see the difference in the foods and how we're being treated in the different
Meaning
neighborhoods.
that the one in Co-op City has less healthy foods.
Correct.
And those kinds of
Correct.
things. So do you expect to set up educational programs? Is this about you going from school to school? I'm asking, you know, nuts and bolts. How do you really do that?
It's partnering up with community-based organizations who provide health information and having them go out into the schools, bringing nutritionist and wellness educational programs within the schools where we're talking about after-school programs, hosting town hall meetings that will educate our community on a variety of different things. Health and wellness will just be one of the things that, as a city council person, I'll be targeting.
Well, I can volunteer for this program if you ever wanted to do a health and wellness thing on this show. Here we are.
Thank you.
We will always say we will do that. You know, what you say actually reaches right into a couple of different topics which I want to get to, and one is economic development. You talked about the stores, and you say, well, you know, a store maybe in Co-op City, a Stop and Shop in Co-op City may not carry the kinds of foods you want. But then, of course, all along White Plains Road, people are still buying their groceries from bodegas and things like that. How do you address that process from the nutritional point of view to say, well, you know what, we've got to change your behaviors as well as change what is stocked in the stores?
Right. I like to say this. We've gotten to a point in our community that just didn't happen overnight. In order for us to recover from some of the bad nutritional habits that we have, we're going to have to uncover some of the things that we're experiencing. So that means having conversations with our Passmarks, having conversations with our bodegas, having conversations with the C Market, having conversations with the fine fairs, and asking them to get on board in a new plan that will be able to bring quality foods in. And I'm not saying that they all are not bringing in quality foods, but I've shopped in, because this is my neighborhood, you know, and I've shopped and I've seen some of the foods that's been on the market, and I'm saying, you know, we could do better, you know, and that's all I'm asking is that that foods are not on the shelf that are expired, or you change a tag and say it's the manager special when you know that meat pretty much is exceeded its expiration date. You know, we have to respect the people that are spending the money, and because with that causes other issues when you feed people bad foods.
Let's talk about White Plains Road and economic development. Is one of the topics that I thought was hotly debated on our debate that we had when you weren't there that night. Would you move to establish a bid on White Plains Road, or would you want to develop, a Bronx Business Alliance type organization, some economic, driving factor? What would you do on White Plains Road to really spur activity and have the store owners engage in the kind of dialogue you want?
There are a number of things that White Plains Road needs. And the first thing it needs, and it all ties into safety too, and when we talk about economic development, one of the things I like to see happen is training and educating and partnering up with businesses that will provide stores and job opportunities, and allowing the people in the 12th district of the Bronx to become managers, the owners, and the people who work in the stores. One of the things that I have experienced when I'm on White Plains Road shopping is that some of the store owners do not reside in our communities. And what tends to happen is that when you're not part of a community, you may not tend to go the extra step or the extra mile to make sure the community is engaged. I would like for all our businesses to be engaged with the community, so this way our community can patronize and economics, as I like to say, the seven-hand touch rule of $1. If Uncle Joe is at the cleaners, if Sister Georgette is handling the corner store, or your barber, is someone who lives around the corner, everyone will tend to look out for one another. And you won't ever have, when you talk about robberies and crime, because everyone knows and knows everyone. It's about bringing the community, the you and I, back into the community.
It's almost like reestablishing the notion of a small town within, of course, the big city.
Yeah, and I think that's so crucial when we're talking about establishing a bid, or, I would like to be able to, which is what I plan on doing with the whole 12th district, is sitting down with the business owners, because what we're also learning is that because every store lot someone's working in, they're not necessarily the owners. The owners are nowhere to be found. They're renting a space and they're just trying to survive and make a dollar. So we need to make sure that we have a conversation with all of them that figure out what is the best plan to improve White Plains Road.
First step, it sounds like, then, is the conversation.
Yes.
This is Councilman King. We're getting either group together, or I'm coming by your neighborhood or something like that, or even just stop by and say, hey, nice to meet you, and want to get a sense of who you are.
Yes.
Let's one more question about White Plains Road. The Community Board 12 in that part of the Bronx, has voted in favor of higher density buildings on White Plains Road. And in fact, 4 years ago, the area was rezoned. How do you make the Community Board's vision come true, or do you not like this concept?
When it comes to rezoning, I am one that believes that we have to make sure that it keeps the look of the community. And if the community says that we want to upzone or downzone because we want to build, then I think it's our responsibility as those who are elected, so it's our responsibility of those leaders in the community to move any legislation to fast track to get things done. One thing I hate to see happen, things just to get caught up in the bureaucracy of city government or state government when the people are at need. If the people are saying that we don't need big buildings, we don't need any overdevelopment, then it's up to those elected officials to adhere, because you know why? We are elected to serve what the people are asking for. It's not our personal growth, it's not our personal needs, but it's the needs of the community.
There are 4 homeless shelters scheduled to open soon in a small area of the district. Everyone agrees, and I know you certainly would agree, that we have a need to provide shelter for needy people. And in fact, the city is required to do so. But oversaturation in one community can have negative impact on that community. How do you protect the 12th Council District from becoming a so-called dumping ground for facilities that nobody else wants?
I think the problem with this has happened over the past years is who's been sitting at the table when these decisions were made. And I can say here tonight to all my constituents that as the council member, that I will be sitting at the table and I will do all I can to neighborhoods. They've come in neighborhoods where you have a lot of homeowners, and no disrespect to any persons that need of shelter, but a lot of people who come into placed in homes have a number of issues. And if you don't have the services to help these people deal with the issues that they're transitioning from, then you bring another element to a once block that might have been quiet and more family oriented. And is it fair for someone who's been paying taxes, who have been building a home for their family, to deal with issues that they had nothing to do with? Food for thought.
Sounds like it's a matter of being an active council member and not an absent council member. So you're saying that the issue is be at the table when the decision is made. Of course, sometimes the city makes the decisions and you find out about them afterwards and you end up catching up. I mean, there's no secret about that. But I guess vigilance is the bottom line.
Yes, I plan on like I said, uncover for our community to recover. I plan on working. That's been my commitment when I was campaigning, that you'll have a council member that's going to keep you informed and engaged. So I need the community to know what's going on in City Hall. I need to know what's going on in the community at all times, and that's why there's going to be this open-door interactive conversation between myself and the community, because in order for the 12th District to move forward, it's going to take a concerted effort by everyone in the 12th District, not one or two folks.
We were talking before the show about yet another teenager who is from your neighborhood who is the victim of gun violence, and as we were having the dialogue, my anger was boiling, and and viewers know we've talked about this literally for every year of the 18 years on our program, that and because everybody says it, we've got to establish more productive activities for our young people. We need more community centers. We don't need less of them, and yet it seems like we always seem to be going in the other direction. Right. Without even asking you, do you think we need more community centers? The question is, how do, with budgets shrinking, with the DOE saying not in my backyard, not in the schools right now, how do you establish more activities and more positive activities in this climate for young people?
Right. Now, the first thing, whether we need more community centers, I think we need more community programs and educational youth programs. We have enough structures that are in the 12th District that can be utilized. I recall the days when the Department of Ed, when we were able to utilize school buildings for after-school programs that help young people to develop themselves. We have to get back to the point where the Department of Education understands that these buildings that are erected all across the city are there designed to help the public. It's not anybody's personal building. They've been built to educate and train people, the students and the communities that they exist in. So we got to get back there. We got to have this conversation that these buildings need to be open, put programs in there. And you mentioned about lack of funding. I've been a staunch opponent of making sure that people have the opportunity to volunteer. And of course, we're in an economic climate right now where there may not be a lot of funding for programs, but I say lack of funding doesn't mean lack of service. So we need to make sure that if we know that we need to educate our kids or give some time to our kids, from Co-op City to to the community rooms they have, utilizing community rooms, parents and adults coming down and partnering up with young people to offer themselves to help young people. And if we can find the funding, I say my goal is to make sure that youth and educational services from DYCD is a priority, that young people are not the first ones ever to get cut when it comes budget season, because it seems like the youngest ones and the eldest ones are always the ones that we throw out there first to figure out where we cut and slash. If we want to build and protect our future, we need to make sure that we take care of the youth in the community.
Let's talk about gangs. In that part of the Bronx in particular, especially around the Edenwald projects and Baychester, there are big issues with gangs. Is the answer the same one that you just gave me in terms of fighting gangs? The city doesn't have an overabundance of gang prevention programs, to say the least. What's your vision on helping to get kids out of gangs and into more productive activities?
This is where all of society has to pitch in, because gangs is not just a New York City problem. You can go from Detroit to Chicago to LA where gangs are prevalent. But what we need to start doing is, why do we have gangs? Young brothers and young sisters are in need, in search of. And for the most part, and I would say the communities of color, a lot of young people are taught, are taught not to love themselves. So they engage in behavior that's becoming of someone who's full of self-hatred. So if we were talking about deterring young people from gangs, then let's create programs that allow young people to love themselves. Let's look at kids when they're in 3rd grade, when they're in elementary school. You know, do they have family resources around them? Do they have some place where they can go? Do they have an outlet? When they get into junior high school, when they're really lost, trying to figure out where's right and left, is there some stable environment? The question was asked of me, how do you take a young person out of a gang-ridden environment? Well, sometimes the kid is not going to be able to get out of that environment, but I asked them to latch on to somebody who's doing the right thing, and then they mentally have to take themselves out of that environment. More easier said than done, but if we as an adult have a responsibility to give back and grab those young people who are in search and who are in need of.
It's probably more difficult nowadays maybe than ever before to have the insular families deal with it, because parents, you mentioned it earlier, and it's no secret, many of our Bronx families, both parents are working after school, kids are on their own, and of course anything can happen. So I guess my question, I'm answering it myself, it goes back to the other question, if you have more programs, then they have more productive things to do. Let's talk about the relationship between communities and police officers. There was a young man killed, I guess it was over the summer, by a police officer in that part of the Bronx. How do we reestablish the relationship so it's a partnership in the fight against crime, instead of the rancor that has been counterproductive, beginning with stop and frisk?
Right. What I have done as the volunteer director of the Bronx Youth Empowerment Program, I had established a sub-program called Connections, and what it did, it allowed police, and specifically from NYPD, the 47th Precinct, to meet with students and youngsters on a monthly basis to understand policing. And it gave young people an opportunity to voice their concerns, learn what the do's and don'ts are of a community. And what I think we need to do is, as a council member, I will look to engage NYPD to do more of that, not only just with their monthly precinct meetings, but meeting along with the young people, because for the most part, it's not the 57 or the 67-year-old who have an encounter, the negative encounters, it's the 15-year-old, it's the 12-year-old, it's the 21-year-old. So if a teen, early teen gets in a negative encounter, by the time they're 19 or 20, they don't have the respect that they need to have for police officers. But we need to be able to get to a point where the dialogue is mutual, where young people respect NYPD and NYPD respects the community. And if we can do that, I think we can move forward. I remember the days of growing up with community police officers where the same officers were in an area. You know, you had your beat officers, and then you're able to establish a relationship. So now that, give an example, Malik, who comes out of walking down the street out of the school, and he's been at a couple of these meetings, and he knows Officer Torres. Now, Officer Torres sees him on 219th and White Plains Road and say, listen, guys, I need for you guys really to clear off the corner here. It's after school, but you really need to leave. As opposed to the young man throwing up his hands and saying, oh, this is America, why I can't stand. He's going to be like, okay, Officer Torres, you got it, and I'll just move.
And I'm going to go the other way, and Officer Torres has to be somewhat respectful and polite and not say, you know what, you up against the wall, and all of a sudden start frisking somebody who's just standing there minding their own business. Maybe not in the best situation, but maybe that is also raising the level of tension in the community.
Well, that's where those prior meetings of them meeting every month, and they get to build a relationship with the young people. So when they run into each other on the street, it's a conversation, you know what I'm saying, as opposed to anything else.
It's interesting. So many of the questions that I've asked tonight and your answers come down to the same thing. We need to start dialogues in all of these issues. It's a dialogue about health care. It's a dialogue with store owners. It's a dialogue between parents and young people. It's a dialogue between the communities. And certainly we'll invite you back and see how that dialogue is going over time.
Yes.
Let's talk about education and in our schools. What do you think about the trend toward charter schools and privatization? It's undeniable that it's there. Are you in favor of it? Is it going well? What's your attitude?
I'm a product of the public school system, and I'm proud to graduate from Evander Childs High School. I think one of the things that has done a disservice to both systems, because I look at charter schools and the general public school system as two different systems, and who actually benefits when you split children, because at the end of the day, they all need to pass the same SATs. They all need to pass the same Regents. I like for them to see how they can figure out a system that the children definitely, the students actually come first. And if they can have one completed system, find the best practices and implement it, it'll be so. I think you won't have parents fighting against one another. You won't walk into the same building on the third floor. They got smart boards and classroom sizes of 20 and 2 teachers. Then you go to another floor where you got 45 kids and the desks are beat up. It just isn't fair.
Of course, saying it and doing it is another thing. Mm-hmm. The DOE and the mayor certainly may have another attitude. Are you a fan of mayoral control at this point in time? Obviously, it's going to be a state decision, but would you advocate for keeping the system as it is, or does it need to be reformed?
I like to see more parents and students involved in how they're being educated in information.
Can you legislate that? Can you insist that
from
that
the city council? We will not be able to. We would have the conversation and lobby and urge our counterparts who are up in the state legislature to deliver what the people back here at the city would like to see happen. But I think I'm one for inclusiveness. And I think every elected official has a responsibility whatever decisions that they're making, even though you're hired to do a job, it's only best practices to make sure that your community gives you some input, because none of us are the great I ams. And if we can get to the point that we all consult with our constituents from time to time, I think all communities can grow and be excited and be involved about whatever decisions are made, whether good or bad.
We only have a few moments, but let's talk briefly about Co-op City. Longtime residents are concerned. Buildings are in disrepair. Like many Mitchell Lamas across the state, there's an undercurrent dialogue about privatization as a solution. Do you favor privatization for Co-op City? And if not, how do you stop the deterioration and restore it to be one of the housing jewels of the city that it was, and people still believe it might be able to be?
I don't live in Co-op City. I have a daughter who does live in Co-op City. I have a number of friends and family, a lot of supporters who live in Co-op City. I think I would be unjust to sit here and say whether I support privatization or I do not support privatization without sitting down and actually having a real conversation with the cooperators there and weighing out the pros and cons and giving everybody an opportunity to weigh in on what impact it will actually have. And I say that because I think it's unfair for anybody to make a decision on any place of residency for anyone when they don't experience it and they don't have to deal with it day to day.
Sounds like something you'll need to get more involved in over the course of time, and I certainly appreciate your frankness on it. Rather than give us an answer that maybe you wouldn't be able to support. Councilman-elect, we're essentially out of time.
Okay.
We want to put up a phone number, so this is the preliminary phone number. You don't have an office set up just yet?
No, we're looking to be stated. I want to share this. We will be stated in City Council on December 11th, and we're looking to open up offices off of the Gun Hill area and in Co-op City after the swearing in.
The phone number is on the screen, but if you want to contact the council member-elect before he starts serving, I think he welcomes your phone call, right?
Yes, I do. It's 718-515-5464.
Councilman, we're thrilled that you're here. We wish you the best of luck in building up the Bronx, because that's what we support wholeheartedly, one way or the other in this show. And we made a good start here with this dialogue, and we hope you'll come back.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Folks, if you have further comments or questions on anything you heard on tonight's show or anything going on in the Bronx, then email them to us at BronxTalk@hotmail.com or make a comment on our Facebook page. And we'll read those comments on the air during a future edition of our program. Archives of Bronx Talk available at bronxnet.org. You click Bronx Talk at the bottom right. It's on the little navigation bar down there. Also, please become a fan of Bronx Talk on Facebook. We're going to ask the council member to do the same. Next Monday night, we'll be here for more Bronx Talk, and we'll talk at that time about the lawsuit that's been filed against the proposal to bring Fresh Direct to the South Bronx. Should be interesting. So we'll see you next Monday night and every Monday night for Bronx Talk. Thanks to our great producer, Jane Folloro, director Michael Arias, and all the other people who are around us in the studio. We'll see you next Monday night and every Monday night.
Attractive extended warranty option that includes free service and parts for the next 5